Hey, trying to stay cool, my brother. Trying to stay cool.
I know. It's tough these days. It's a little extra hard work than usual, right? So
Right. I don't know, man. Maybe like one of the hottest summers.
yeah, for sure.
Remember?
For sure. Well, I do live in Southwest Florida, so every summer is hot here, right?
Yeah. Florida's a different game, man. It's
Yeah,
hot in Florida all the time, except for the winter. Y'all got great winters because it's about 70 degrees. But
yeah, yeah. And if it goes, but I lived in Boston for about 23 years, then moved down here, and here if in Boston, if it's 60 degrees, people are taking off their coats, they're walking around with no shirts. Here it's 60 degrees, people have gloves and hats and all kind of stuff.
yeah, it's a little
Anyway,
different.
so wanted to start a little bit just by presenting what I've been doing here for the past 3 months or so. I have a pretty big following here on Instagram, and a lot of it has to do with being involved with football around the world. But I also live. Uh, you there?
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
All right, I'm good.
All right. So yeah, I also live here in Naples, Florida, and follow a lot of the businesses around here. And I decided a different way that I could help. Was thinking of different ways I could help the community down here. And the way that I figured out was that I did live videos with local business owners to kind of showcase their businesses, showcase their services, and help them through the struggling economy. But obviously, having followers that are geared towards sports and football mainly. I wanted to kind of bring guests in here that could kind of give a different perspective on what people around the world is used to football, right? So I've had, I had Jarvis Green, I had Dan Wilcox, I had Chris Gramkowski, I had Lee Steinberg, I had Alma
The
Rosa
Asian.
last week.
Yeah.
So had had cheerleader from the Dolphins, all different aspects of the game. And I'm very glad to have you here tonight. I haven't had a quarterback yet, so I think that's something pretty unique. And I'm looking forward to kind of hearing what you have to tell us about yourself, about the game, and everything else. So with that, I wanted to ask you to kind of introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us where you were born, where you were raised until your high school years. And
Yeah, Felipe, I'm from Mississippi originally. I was born in Laurel, Mississippi. Played high school ball at Taylorsville, which was a small school. I'd probably say population, man, probably 4,000 max. So I was from the area where on Friday nights, if you want to go to the game, that's where they always say you can rob the town because everyone that lives there is at the game on Friday nights, and so it's that real feeling, man, where football was kind of embedded in me as an early age, and everything. So, from there I was able to go to Auburn. I went to Auburn in 2000, graduated 2004. A lot of people know us as the undefeated season in 2004. We went 13-0. We had our 4 first-round draft picks. And we didn't get the opportunity to play the national championship game. That kind of stung us a little bit because, how an SEC school go undefeated and not get a chance to play the national title game. But, we did earn a lot of respect and we received a lot of attention and a lot of, some people gave us national champs as well. But at the same time, man, it'd been nice to play in that game. But I do feel like we changed college football. I do feel like the whole conversation started that year that led to where we're at now with the playoff system because it was 4 teams undefeated that year. It was USC, Oklahoma, Auburn, and Utah. So, it's very rare you see 4 teams undefeated at the end of the season. And then from then on, man, I was drafted in the first round by the Washington Redskins, played there for 5 years, and went on to play with the Raiders, and I ended up finishing my career in Cincinnati, for 10 years in the NFL. And I could have kept playing, but, some injuries and different things, and, just kind of drove me out the game.
awesome. No, thanks. Yeah, and I wanted to kind of go back to when you first started playing football. Like you said, you grew up in a city that football is kind of everything, right? And I really didn't get that concept until I moved down to Florida because I grew up in Boston. Yeah, we have football there, but until you go to a game here in Florida on a Friday night, you don't really understand what that is all about. But when was the first time that you were involved with football, and how early did you start playing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't start playing football, honestly, until I was 13. I used to play out in the yard, though. We used to call this game where you toss the ball up in the air. It's probably not the right name for it, but we call it a killer man. so, so if you got the ball, everyone was able to tackle you. So it don't matter if it's 30 people out there, 20
Oh
people. If you
man,
throw the ball up in the air,
that
people
sounds rough.
try to come get you, and you try to escape and go score through all these people. So, man, I did that. I got an older brother. He was 6 years older than me, so you best believe they didn't take it easy on us. Every time, they was laying us out. So we was playing football with no pads up to seventh grade. So that was worse than playing football with pads. So, but I didn't start to seventh grade where I played team oriented football and tackle. And from that point on, I've always played the quarterback position, even in seventh grade, all the way through high school and everything. So, but basketball was my favorite sport growing up. Basketball was my ordeal, man. But at the same time, it wasn't too many 6'5" quarterbacks, and it made a lot of sense. It's a lot of 6'9" point guards and shooting guards. So, I stuck with football. But man, growing up in the household, my dad was a coach. It was just kind of instilled in me. Like he used to get out in the yard with me, work with me. He didn't really change my natural throwing motion. I was just God gifted and blessed with that. But I learned a lot about the game. I used to study the game at home. Even as a kid, I used to study videos of other players, and I used to learn from them and the different things that they did that made them successful. When I was in junior high, I would find a high school kid that was real successful. When I got to high school, I would find a college, and then from college, I would find a pro. And you always have to find people that you can feel like, what are they doing to help you measure up to what you're trying to do? And that kind of helped me along the way. I was always a student of the game as well as an athlete.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's actually a very important message to a lot of the players, and they're probably watching this video, right? A lot of the players that are playing abroad, obviously, they don't live off football, right? They have day jobs, and then they play on the weekend. But it's very important to not only work out and keep in shape and all this stuff, but the importance of studying the game and understanding the game at a deep level, right? That if you don't take time to study your art, you're never going to be as good
All
as you
right.
could be on your art, right? So
Well, a lot of these kids nowadays, they think just because they have the talent's going to get them where they want to go alone. And that's just not true.
yeah,
You're only measuring yourself up in the community. Once you get out here to these college ranks and, you're fortunate to play in the NFL, you're talking about nationwide. And so don't just measure yourself up with just who's in your community. I always tell kids, man, like, get out and get involved. Go to camps in the summertime. Go measure yourself up against others. Don't be afraid to see where you're at and what you need to improve on, because
yeah,
we all need improvement. But if you never measure yourself up against some of the better guys, then you're always going to think you're the greatest. And
yeah,
you're always going to feel like there's no room to grow. And there's always room to grow. You just haven't seen it yet. And that's why I keep telling these young kids, man, just, don't get complacent. Don't get to that mindset where you feel like you know everything.
yeah,
There's people that's gone before you, that's been there and done it, that can help you. But oh, my bad. But you gotta be willing to listen
yeah,
and be willing to take in knowledge. And I always tell guys, man, be a sponge. Be a sponge. Soak up as much as you possibly can while you can. And because the more you know, that just elevates you in everything that you do.
yeah. Yeah, and like you have to be humble enough to understand that there is room for improvement, right? No matter how great you are, you see pros, right? I mean, on the
Uh,
off seasons, they go out, they sit with their coaches, they work on the quarterbacks. Growing up in Boston, obviously I grew up a Patriots fan, so I knew
oh man.
I would follow Brady. Brady goes out and he's working with his coach on the week on the off season, right? And
All right.
so no matter how good you are, you're always looking for ways to improve yourself, right? So, but you have to be humble enough to understand that you're good, but you can always be better, and always look for ways to improve, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
since I threw the name out there, and you're mentioning, every time that you were in a level, you were looking to someone on the next level. When you were in college, what was the person that you kind of looked up to, that you wanted to get to that certain level?
When I was in college, I grew up in a small town, like I said, Taylorsville, Mississippi, born in Laura. People probably know the name Steve McNair, Ashton
Yeah, yeah,
McNair. He grew up in Mount Olive, Mississippi, which was just a little smaller than Taylorsville. And I remember watching him in high school when my brother was in high school. And then I followed his career in college when he was at Alcorn State. And then when he got drafted to the at that time the Houston Oilers, which became the Tennessee Titans. I used to always, watch him because I was just like, man, he's a guy that remind me of myself because he's a young guy from a small town that made it to the big leagues, and he was a Heisman watch and everything, and I ended up finished seventh in the Heisman voting, but you just think two small kids, man, from small areas, like there's no excuse, just because if you just put the work in, man, like you can't control a lot of things. Like a lot of things you just got to pray about, but God gives you the ability. Don't waste it. I think a lot of kids just waste it because, for various reasons. Some can't take the pressure, or some, get involved with the wrong type of friends, and they rather be cool than to shoot for goals and everything. And then they get older, they look back at it, and they wish they'd have pursued their goals and set goals. Don't be afraid to set goals, but watching him, man, like it gave me a lot of I'd probably say confidence, that I can do the same thing.
Yeah. And, I wanted to ask you a question based on something you just said. Do you think, coming from a small town like you did, like McNair did, does that put more pressure on you, or does that kind of take the pressure away, or does it really depend on the person? Did you ever felt that like you had to kind of represent your town and, the name of the town, you're kind of had it in your shoulders, or do you feel that because it was not, maybe if you're from a big city, there's more pressure in that sense. I don't know if you ever thought
Uh,
of that or not.
it kind of go both ways. Like I said, growing up in my town, we was always competing for state championships. Like the guys before us. So when it came your opportunity, it was expected of you to win.
Yeah,
It's almost like you got to carry the torch, and
yeah,
you got to keep it going. You can't let the light go out. So, it was always that responsibility there. And then once I got to the college ranks, it's always expected of you to win at these big programs. You think of the Auburns and SEC schools and things like that. Even any big Division I schools, you're expected to win. And you play the quarterback position, all the eyes are always on you, good, bad, whatever.
yeah,
They're always watching you. And so you always say if you're gonna play the quarterback position, you have to be one, ready to be a leader, two, ready to accept criticism, and three, be mentally challenged because those things are going to happen. And you got to know how to block out the noise and keep moving forward. And when you're doing great things, you got to know how to do it with gratitude. You got to know how to continue to let that motivate you to continue to want to do more and don't get complacent. But man, it can be pressure, small school or big school. Like for me, I felt a little bit of the pressure just because when you do come from a small area, so many kids looking up to you, because they can point to you because not a whole lot have made it out of there to make it to the big leagues. So they're watching to see how you handle every situation, how they expect you to be successful. And like I say, I was blessed to play 10 years in the National Football League and be SEC Player of the Year in 2004. It's just, I was just honored. Like I said, it's just like you don't get through this thing alone. And that's the
yeah,
other thing. I had a strong family. I had a strong family and close friends that always motivated me and pushed me and everything. So the foundation was always there from the get go. Some kids don't have that. So I always tell kids, if you don't have that, use that as your motivation to want to change it for
yeah,
your next generation and your family. By going out and achieving things and trying to get to a higher level so that you can reach back into your family and pull them up. And so kids from big cities, man, they had it tough too because you're competing with so many kids.
yeah,
Like you think about the New York and you think about California, it's so many kids. Like it's five times the numbers and everything. So it's even harder, I think, in the bigger cities for you to be seen than just it is in the little cities. Because in the bigger cities, you really got to be a big fish in a big sea,
yeah,
and everything. So your mindset got to be locked in on all things.
yeah. And I just wanted to kind of elaborate a little bit on what you said and ask you this question too. So, we were talking about the pressure from big city or a small city, but then and you started talking a little bit about there's a pressure. I feel like as a quarterback, there's a lot of pressure on you. You're
Yeah,
kind of like the heart of the team, right? Like, and if you do well, you're praised and you're great and blah blah blah. But if you do bad, they're also on you, right?
Right.
And what's the best way to kind of cope with that? I mean, you mentioned you kind of have to block the noise and you have to stay focused. But coming out of college, maybe playing your first year, second year, I mean, and being early 20s, like I imagine that's something hard, right? Like it's not just it just doesn't happen automatically. Like, and so
Right.
so what are some of the things that that you've done or other people that have done to kind of be able to focus like that and keep those
Yeah.
noise away?
Right. I'm talking about that's part of it, man. Like I said, like sometimes as a quarterback, you can get too much credit when things go well, and you understand it's the ultimate team sport is football, and sometimes you can get too much of the blame when things don't go right because no one can see, maybe someone missed a block, or maybe someone ran the wrong route, or maybe something happened. But as a leader, you don't pinpoint those to the public. That's something you just take home with you, and you get with your guys, and you talk through it, and you work through it, and. And in the public, you just say, hey, we all can do things better. Maybe I could have done that better. You cover for your guys. And
Yeah,
then, but once you get to the meeting room, you handle it with your guys, and that help you stay accountable to each other. Because the one thing you don't want to do from a quarterback standpoint is start trying to call out guys publicly. That just doesn't work well. It doesn't send a good signal throughout the rest of the team. And everything. Because when things are going good, you getting a lot of the credit. They're not coming up there saying, well, wait a minute. I made an outstanding catch or I made an outstanding block,
yeah,
so it goes hand in hand. So,
yeah,
and then the other thing, man, I just think like, for us, like growing up and then coming through college is, man, it's so much thrown at these kids nowadays. We didn't have social media like they do now.
yeah,
Back when we was in school, it was some different things, but it's not to the level now where I think a lot of
yeah,
these guys, you would see them before a game. Before I even left the NFL, in my last year, it was 2015 January. I look up in the locker room. It's some guys they be on their phone trying to see how many likes they getting, or trying to put out a video real quick before they start the game.
yeah,
Just to come back and check it after the game. And just see,
yeah,
hey man, how many people are watching me? How many people like? Sometimes you can get lost in that world, and you have to understand like social media can be used as a good platform,
yeah,
but it also can work against you if it becomes your main priority. And
yeah,
you can't let it be your main priority, and you can't get caught up into how many people like what you put out or how many people don't. Don't let that make you feel like, or make that feel like that's your worth, because it's not.
yeah,
It's just an opportunity for you to use it as a light. And
yeah. It's
but
just another
guys,
platform, right?
all
That's
right, it's another platform. Like I said, it's another platform that can help you, and that's the main thing. That's why I tell all these young guys, man, just don't get caught up into that.
yeah. I wanted to kind of go a little bit further. So we talked, a little bit about high school, about college. And I wanted to continue a little bit on the NFL trajectory. You said it on the beginning. You played 10 years. You had experience with different teams. Wanted to cover that. How was being drafted, playing for the Washington team? That's what we should be calling them now, right?
Yeah,
The Washington team. And
right.
then from there, going to the other teams, or getting cut, getting signed by other teams, getting traded. I mean, all that experience. How was those emotions for you?
Yeah, it was a little different. Like I said, you go to high school, you go to college, and but then once you get to the NFL, you learn a lot real quick. You learn it's a business. And for myself, I was played in Washington for 5 years, and then I was traded to the Oakland my 6th year and everything. And that was a big transition because I'd never been like traded before. I never had the experience living on the opposite side of the United States, away from my family.
Yeah,
Every time I played on the East Coast. And so, to go to the West Coast was a really good transition. I think I learned a lot. I grew a lot as a person, and everything. And I always say this: you have to be willing to adapt to change. Like change is going to happen in your life, and as long as you're still living, as long as you're still growing, you're going to go through changes. And it's how you deal with those changes is what's going to help you grow. You can take it with a grain of salt, or you can be bitter about it and you won't grow because you're still living in the past. You have to be willing to live on and move on to the future, and just keep going. And I went to Oakland, had a great career in Oakland. Was the only winning quarterback at that time since Rich Gannon had played there, and ended up breaking my collarbone in the 6th game the season in my second year there, and it was 4-2 at the time, going on 5-2. It was up at halftime of that game, and I ended up breaking my collarbone like 14 different places.
Oh
And
wow.
so yeah, I have now a metal plate and 14 different screws in my shoulder, my right shoulder.
Oh wow.
And you wake
That,
up out
that's
of
your, that's your throwing shoulder.
yeah, that's my throwing
Yeah.
shoulder.
Yeah.
So instantly your dream can just be like wiped away from you like real quick.
Yeah.
And the things you took for granted, you now look back at them, you be like, man, like wow, that's why I tell guys, man, don't take anything for granted, man. Like when you're in the moment, enjoy the moment, what I'm saying, work as hard as you can to fulfill the moment, but don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
And like I said, after that season, I ended up getting signed with the Chicago Bears because they had traded for Carson Palmer this time, and I ended up finding that out of my surgery. And that's when I really learned, like, man, this is a huge business. Like, it's all about what can you do for me now,
Yeah.
and then once you can't do anything for the business, they get rid of you.
Yeah.
And I was in a
I,
contract year.
sorry to cut you. I
No,
want to know because you mentioned you were traded to Oakland. And you said you have to adapt, and I understand that. But like, how was the reaction when you first hear that news? Like, do you feel like worthless? Do you feel like that you're kind of disposal? Like
uh, yeah, it's kind of like you feel a couple of different things. Like you feel disappointed. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? You feel like as a competitor, anytime you get traded, sometimes you feel like, dang, like, you didn't think I was good enough for something,
yeah,
or, like, so you do go through those kind of feelings, which are human feelings.
right,
As you have to know your worth, and you have to understand, like, man,
yeah,
sometimes you can just be in a bad situation, which is what was going on, and God's trying to put you in a better situation, but you're fighting against it. But then all of a sudden,
yeah,
because when I was first going to Oakland, they weren't having good years at the time. I was just like, oh man, I was kind of like, dang, like really,
yeah,
But at the same time, once I got out there, man, I enjoyed it, man. I ended up meeting some really good guys on the team. We ended up having a really good first year, and the second year we started off really good, and we had a good young team. Like we was gonna be good for about at least a good 5 to 6 years. And like I said, like once I broke my collarbone, McFadden got hurt, Jacoby Ford got hurt, Lewis Murphy got hurt. Next thing you know, they broke the team up and everything. And so, but yes, you do go through those bitter feelings, because my last year in Washington, our record wasn't that good, but I had a really good year from a quarterback standpoint. But I only had one starter on the offensive line to play with me all the. I lost all my starters of the offensive line within the first 4 games of the season to season-ending injuries, and we was having to pick up guys off the street to come in and play left tackle, left guard, and different things like right tackle, and you don't even know these guys, and you're
yeah,
playing against Justin Tuck and Michael Strahan and Osis Umanero, for the Giants, and DeMarcus Ware for the Eagles, and then you go to play against Philadelphia with the defense they had under Jimmy Johnson at the time. So it was a really tough division, and you fought through it and you gave them your all. And I played through a lot of games where I was seriously hurt and injured, and it just go to show you, like, man, you can play through those games seriously hurt and injured, but as soon as they feel like it's nothing you can do for them or it's not good enough for them, they quickly forget the circumstances.
yeah,
That I didn't even have all my guys playing with me, and I still put up these kind of numbers. And I still fought for you when I could have just said, "Nah, I'm hurt, I'm beat up," but I still
yeah,
gave you my all. So I've also learned, don't expect the same thing from others as what you expect,
yeah,
because you send yourself in disappointment sometimes by expecting too much
yeah,
in return. And so I've learned to just move on, man. And when I got to Oakland, it gave me a sense of when I first got there, it was different. Like I said, it was different. I said you're not living in your same house. Everything's just different. You relearn the city, you relearn the organization, and I accepted it. And once I accepted it, I started to feel good. I started to fit in. I started to get to know the guys. It became exciting because it was new, and I enjoy living in California and everything. So I embraced the decision, and I think it was one of the better moves at the time when I look at it back at my career.
awesome. And I wanted to talk about the after football, right? So
Mm.
Obviously, you had a 10-year career on the NFL, and then what do you do today, and what did you go into once you decided? Well, maybe towards the end of your career, what was the point that you decided to, it's time for me to kind of give up football right now and move into something else? And then what did you go to, and is it the same thing you're doing today?
Yeah, towards the end of my career, you start to think about it when you start to get later into your career. Like, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming, and there's come a time that you're gonna be a young man. So what is it that you want to get involved with? And for me, I've always wanted to do, like radio work and TV work, and so that's what I do now. I do radio analyst for Auburn University for the home games. I do the halftime. I do the pregame show for 3 hours, and I do the halftime uh, analysis of the game. And then, I do a podcast show now. They called Believe in Everything Auburn, BLEAV. If people want to look it up, if you go onto their website, you can look up for Auburn, and you'll see myself and Taylor Beth Davis, who went to Auburn. So we do a podcast where we have a lot of former players that played at Auburn, big names, that come onto our show, and they don't just talk about their career, but they talk more about life. And I think a lot of people get to know them personally through this experience, and some of their stories that I didn't even know, and I heard them. It was touching, and then you feel like these people even more because they are your alumni, and you grow together, and it is like a family. And so I do that, and then my Twitter is jcam_17. Sometimes I go over there and tweet, about different things at Auburn, but most of my base is the radio network and the podcast show, and I was doing like a staffing company. I tried that out for a little bit, and then the pandemic happened, so. We eventually have to probably shut that down because you're not able to travel, you're not able to do interviews. So, but I was doing a staff and a consultant, and I got a chance to learn the business side of the world before it got shut down. I was traveling DC a lot. I was getting involved with, how the government contracts work. I was getting involved with, within the city of how commercial contracts work. And so, I was learning different trades and different things. And I also helped coach at the high school, at the local high school where I live at. We went deep into the playoffs last year. We had a really great year. I was the quarterbacks coach on the team and helped put in offensive plays at the same time. So, just kind of reaching and doing a different variety of things, man. And I do public speaking at times where I go speak to teams and everything, and do different things that way. So, I spoke to some businesses before. They're like, "Hey, how can you speak to a business?" I was like, "Well, you're a quarterback." I always tell the businesses, I was just like, "Guys, you're all on the same team.
Yeah.
But if you're on offense, there's 11 guys on offense, 11 guys on defense." I said, one guy on offense decides to do something different than the rest of the 10 guys, it can mess up the whole thing.
Yeah.
I said, it's the same way when you're in your huddle at work. If one person decides to go astray of what the team is trying to do or what the business is trying to build, it can
Yeah.
mess up everything. So I said it all goes hand in hand because for me as a quarterback, everything we do in a huddle is communication.
Yeah.
So your communication got to be on point. If you don't communicate a play, if you leave one word out, it disrupts the whole play because the person gonna be like, "Oh, I thought I heard this, or I didn't hear this, or you didn't
Yeah.
say this." So it puts a lot of ifs in there and a lot of different things. But if you get the exact communication right, then you're able to be successful in the business world and you're able to be successful in the regular world.
Yeah, and you have to build trust too, which you would in football, and you have to do it in business too, right? Like
Oh
the
yeah.
people around you need to trust you and know that you're, especially if you're leading, that you're one making the right decisions and that you're making the best decisions for the team, right? And that's true if you're a quarterback, and that's true if you're in business as well, right? So
Yeah, accountability is the biggest thing.
yeah.
Accountability is huge because, you can, I would say you're only as good as the person you're working with,
Yeah.
and you got to be pulling each other forward. One can't be a weight where you're pulling the other one down. You gotta be a chain. You gotta be linked together. And it's the same way in football, man. Like, you got to be on practice on time. You got to come to work with the right mindset, the right attitude. So all those things, goes hand in hand when it comes to accountable. Like I always tell most guys, I tell my nephew this all the time. I say, "Hey, nephew," I say, "the best ability is availability and accountability." I
Yeah.
said, availability means be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. I said,
Yeah.
accountability is doing your part when no one's watching, but you're doing your part to make sure that the job gets done.
Yeah.
And I said, and so there's just different things, man. I learned through playing a game of football that teaches you a lot about life, and not much separates the difference. You know, it's the
Yeah.
same aspects when you look at things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've like I mentioned earlier, I talked to Jarvis, I talked to Dan, and they have, they shared, similarly
Right.
to what you're doing now, their stories and the things they learned from football. I only played in high school, but I remember, also my story of first day. I was a kicker. I'm Brazilian, so they put me as a kicker. I went
Yeah.
in, kicked the ball went 5 yards, and everybody's laughing, right? But I could have just given up, right, and walk away
All
from
right.
it. I kept practicing, trying, and that's what I do in life every day, right? Until I
Mm-hmm.
get what I want, I keep going at it, right? So there's a lot of lessons that you learn from it. You just have to learn. You have to be able to step back, see what that lesson was, and then apply it to your life. And it sounds like you do a lot of that from this conversation, right? So,
Oh
um,
yeah, like you said something a while ago that was very interesting though. You said like the people around you, and that's the key because even when I was playing ball, my whole thing was I didn't want a bunch of yes people around me, because if you have a bunch of yes people around you and, they're there for the wrong reasons. You want people around you that's going to hold you accountable, going to say like, no, Jay, you wrong for that.
yeah,
Or, you can do this better. You're not putting forth all the effort that you can put in. You want people to motivate you and be truthful to you. You don't want people just, when you messing up, but then they won't tell you the truth. But you messing up, and you'll just say something to them just to see if they're gonna tell you the truth. And they say, and they won't because they're afraid, maybe getting cut off for whatever reason. Like that's not good. That's not good for you because you can't grow as a person if people are not around you that's gonna hold you accountable or those going to be truthful to you.
yeah,
Like just be honest, be truthful with me. Like I'm gonna respect you more for doing that. Don't worry about hurting my feelings. I'm gonna respect you more if you be
yeah,
that way than you just let me do my own thing. And when I know it's wrong, but you making me think it's right.
yeah. I mean, and there's different ways to bring that up to you too, right? Like, I mean, you
All
don't
right,
need
yeah.
you don't need to
Yeah.
explode and say, "Hey, you suck," right? Like, but you can, but you can nicely bring it up and say, "Hey, like you said, we can do this better. This will be better for the team, right?" There's different ways to bring that stuff up. Normally, what I do, Jason, towards the end of the show, I kind of leave it open for my guests to leave a message, for whoever's watching, whoever's going to watch in the future. So I wanted to kind of, leave it an open canvas for you to leave a message, whatever kind of message you want, for either athletes or just people in general, whatever you want to do. It's the floor is yours.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. I just like to say, man, we're all right now in a pandemic. We're all in a time where in life where everything's so uncertain. No one knows when the virus is going to stop. No one knows when things are going to get back to normal. No one knows like, what's the next step for real. But, I say this, mental health is the biggest thing that you can do for yourself right now. And don't get complacent with just doing the same thing or just watching the news over and over and driving yourself into depression. You know, find something to do that's proactive, whether it's reading a book, whether it's studying something different, whether it's exercising or doing different things. Find things that motivate yourself and keep you going. Find a routine. Just get yourself into a routine. Don't just stay off schedule all the time. And understand that we will get through this. And right now you can learn more about yourself that you didn't even know because you have time to do it. You're not always going here or going there. And it's very important right now that we do this thing together. Like if we all one half the group is pulling this way and the other half is pulling that way, we all got to get on the same accord if we want to get through this and understand that this is something serious we're going through, and we need to take all the precautions that we need to take and everything. But at the same time, man, get your mental health right. Don't just let yourself just sit into a funk because this thing will pass. And when it does pass, are you going to be better from it or are you going to be worse from it because you didn't take advantage of the opportunity and time that you was given to better yourself? And so I just say, man, like people just keep your head up, stay up. If you're a young player, Hey man, find mentors. Find people that can help lead you in the right direction. On the field and off the field, and understand. Don't leave the education part out. Not everyone makes it pro, man. It's like 1% of the athletes that play football or basketball or baseball make it to the big leagues. It doesn't mean your life is over.
Yeah.
Like utilize that opportunity to get you a scholarship. But if you don't make it to the pro, take advantage of the opportunity and graduate from college and use that education to go back and get you a big time job, because it's not sometimes about what you know, it's more so about who you know.
Yeah.
And you can make connections through your career where you meet certain people that can give you jobs and different things once you're done playing and everything, man. So I just tell those guys, man, keep your heads up, stay strong. Everyone's try to stay positive, try to lift each other up. We're in a critical time, and support is needed. But it's a time for you to grow and be better and stronger once this thing is over.
Awesome. No, appreciate it. And just to echo that, I talk to a lot of business owners here, like I mentioned, right, that I try to highlight them. And
Hmm.
one of the things they said, one of the positive things about the situation that we're facing is that they've actually been able to slow down and realize what, and be able to analyze what they're doing and how they can improve and do better. And
All
just
right,
like you said, you don't have to be a business. You can do that to yourself, right? Take time
all
for
right,
yourself, reflect on the things that you can do better or things you want to do, and take the time now that there is more time to do this stuff and do it, right?
all right.
So just like a business would, you can do that, yourself as well, right?
All right, I just know once this thing is over with, like when things do get back to some form of normalcy, like the things that you used to take for granted, just going out to eat at nice restaurants or just getting on a flight and traveling and going different places, and just to be able to walk around without a mask on, and live a healthy life, like like to me, like that'll be gracious, and I'd be thankful to God for that, because going through this, man, it makes you realize like things in life can be taken away from you so instantly,
Yeah.
and the things that you thought you knew so well, or thought things you thought were just automatic, once you realize they're not automatic.
Yeah.
Like they are gifts. They are gifts. The times you have, it's a gift. To do different things, it's a gift. And so be appreciative of it, and don't think that you run everything. Don't think that you own everything. Don't think that you make things happen, because it's not true.
Yeah.
God makes all the things happen for us, but we need to start to understand, man, like don't take things for granted. Like love one another, support one another. We're better together as people than we are apart.
For sure.
And that's in anything.
Oh, awesome. Well, Jason, I wanted to, thank you again for taking the time and talking to me and, and my followers, and telling a little bit about your life, your career, and also really a lot of inspiration here. I feel like that, we had a very inspiring conversation.
Mhm.
I look forward that other people that watch find it as inspiring as I did. So I truly appreciate it, and wanted to thank you again for coming here and talking to me.
No, I appreciate it, Felipe. Thank you for having me on. And like I said, man, we do it anytime. So just let me know.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Have a good night, man.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Yep.